For me, nature is just one of the most incredible things that we have. All the interrelationships, all the incredible colours and sounds and smells and insects, and when you have a healthy habitat, it's just magical. I find the landscape in West Cork has still got some wild and wonderful places. Like anywhere else, it is changing rapidly. My name is Marsh Fritillary, and I am a painter. I paint in oils and I paint vegetation, sea, habitats really. The landscape has changed so much in the last 50 years. Insects generally, and butterflies of course included, numbers are collapsing. It's a tragic thing, not just for the species themselves, for the planet, for the human beings. Everybody should be caring about the insects because they're really important. If we don't have insects, one of the main fabrics of the ecosystem is gone and everything suffers. Everything will collapse really. It's going to affect pollination of food crops. It's going to affect trees and woods and forests because they won't get pollinated anymore, they will die. The end of insects means, well, the end of life on Earth really. It's the habitats that have come under so much pressure. The Marsh Fritillary is a fascinating butterfly because it's so specific in its life cycle and what it needs. It only lays its eggs on the devil's bit scabious. It's in flower in the end of August, September, and it's quite tall. It has a beautiful purple button-like flower. The Marsh Fritillary butterfly itself is beautiful. It looks a little bit like stained glass. The thing that really makes them unusual is the female butterfly will lay her eggs on the back of a leaf, and she'll lay maybe 200 eggs or so. And then they all hatch out into little caterpillars. They form this web over themselves, and they gradually munch the leaves of the devil's bit scabious in this kind of web. So the web moves along with them. Because of that, that's the way they are monitored. The people who count Marsh Fritillary butterflies, they actually count the number of webs that you can find in a certain area in the habitat. Like other butterflies, they're actually a really good indicator species. So an indicator species is a species that has a quick turnaround and is very sensitive to changes in the environment, basically. If the quality of the environment changes, it will be reflected in the population of butterflies and the number of species, etc. There's many problems facing butterflies. A lot of it is land clearance for agriculture, intensification of agriculture, drainage of bogs, all those areas that would previously have been rich in wildflower. And scrub is not a positive word, but it is actually positive as far as insects and wildlife is concerned. Scrub is really important. This is an area of coniferous forest. There's very little light getting in, and it is just like a desert. It's just solid pine needles, and nothing can grow. And most often these kind of woods are planted on marginal land, meaning land that is not suitable for, dairying or arable or even grass, because it's kind of usually damp land, but it's the most rich in biodiversity. So there's a real clash between forestry and biodiversity, really. Of course, trees need to be planted, but you need the right trees in the right place. And a lot of the coniferous forests we have don't tick those boxes. I can go for a drive somewhere that I hadn't been for maybe 6 months. There may be a whole piece of land that has been completely grubbed out by rock breakers and diggers. They can turn almost any piece of land into a field. I think this telegraph pole here tells a tale, because you can see where the old level was. The area was rock basically, and it's been rock broken, and it's been turned into a very rich, green, manured pasture, which obviously for butterflies and insects is a bit of a desert. I found a really great colony of Marsh Fritillary butterflies here about 10 years ago, and this little bog here had lots of devil's-bit scabious and lots of other wildflowers in it, as well as the Molinia grass. And the Molinia grass has survived the sheep, but everything else, the sheep have eaten everything else, down to nothing. So Marsh Fritillaries can't survive in here anymore. The monitoring of butterfly and doing transects, where you monitor and count the number of different species and how many butterflies of that species you see. All that data collection is really important. You have something to produce to prove that there is a decline, and a serious decline in many species. And if you don't do that, nobody is going to do anything about anything. You have to have the numbers. A lot of the people doing the counting are citizen scientists, individuals with no qualifications, people who care about the butterflies and the state of nature. And of course there are a lot of professionals also doing counts and things, but a huge amount of it is done by volunteers. All those things go to inform on which places are the best to preserve, which places are the richest habitats. So this is a map of the Mizen Peninsula here, and I monitor quite a few sites on here. Unfortunately, a lot of them are not healthy. There's one area here that now has a rock breaker and digger in it. No agricultural system has fragmented the sites. This is Barley Cove here. Unfortunately, the east side there has had overgrazing, and that has diminished. There was a lovely site up here actually, full of devil's-bit scabious, and I found quite a lot of webs there quite a long time ago. Cattle mostly have been heavy grazing it. There's no web there anymore. 2 sites there, and they have actually collapsed totally. I think it's essential that farmers get paid when they do work for the environment. If they adapt their land to maybe not mow so often, or make hay later on in the year, or whatever it is they do, they absolutely should get paid. And especially for keeping areas of biodiversity and wildflowers, and which would be regarded as sort of scrubby, not very useful agricultural land, whereas it's very valuable for biodiversity and wildlife, and they have to get paid for keeping those kind of areas. You can't expect them just to do it for love. It's a sort of microcosm. What's happening to the butterflies is a kind of microcosm of what's happening to all the insects. It is pretty devastating. Everybody knows there's a biodiversity crisis, and yet it goes on. There are all sorts of things that people can do. You could monitor. You could offer your services to do some butterfly monitoring. People can join conservation organisations. Maybe it's offering to do surveys for biodiversity data centre. They have courses, to show people what to do. You can also lobby your politicians. And then of course in your own garden there are a lot of things you can do. Leave some of your lawn to grow out and flower. It's amazing what will come up if you give it a chance. If you trim a bit of hedge or you trim something up, you can leave the trimmings in a corner, and that will provide habitats for insects too. And even if you live in a flat and you don't have any outside space, you can have a window box and you can plant butterfly friendly plants in it, and they'll come, and that's really nice to see too. For wildlife friendly garden, native plants is really the most important. More protection, changes in legislation, and proper enforcement of laws, the environmental laws. I mean, that would make a big difference. I wish the government would lead more on these issues rather than being dragged, because that seems to be how it is. There are a lot of people doing fantastic niche projects, amazing things to enhance wildlife and help wildlife, but I think the general tide of things is not good. If more effort is put into all the good projects and better management and more wildlife friendly farming, I think things could really improve.